A request during a meeting can lead to a quick agreement without fully considering the implications. Later, the decision feels odd because the request was not urgent, yet refusing it seemed impossible. This occurs when attention is focused on one aspect, causing the brain to make a quick decision using shortcuts. Small cues can trigger automatic responses, leading to answers that follow the cue rather than a careful evaluation. In sales, hiring, and everyday favors, these shortcuts can steer choices towards someone else's goals. Persuaders can design the setting so that the right detail becomes the first thing you notice. A menu highlighting a popular option can make that label seem like evidence of quality. A small gift before a request can shift the mind toward repayment rather than comparison shopping. Next, you will learn the main influence levers and how to recognize them before they affect the decision. This video is inspired by Influence by Robert Cialdini. If it helps clarify these levers, subscribe for more step-by-step breakdowns. Automatic responding occurs when a stored script activates upon a familiar cue, saving effort and time. The key is the trigger feature, which signals which script to run at that moment. Because the shortcut feels efficient, people often accept it even when the situation is complex or novel. This creates predictable openings where a single word, statistic, or symbol can produce a fast yes response. When a request includes a reason phrase like because, compliance can rise even if the reason is thin. In contrast, removing the cue forces the mind to examine the full proposal, which reduces automatic agreement. This is why the same offer can succeed or fail, depending on what feature receives attention first. Once the trigger feature is set, later details matter less because evaluation has already begun along that path. Before answering, pause and name the cue that caught your attention, then ask what information is missing. Practice rewriting requests into plain language without special cues so that choices reflect substance, not triggers. Reciprocation is the rule that creates an obligation to return a favor, even when it was unrequested. The mechanism works because repayment protects reputation and relationships, making people uneasy about holding an unpaid debt. Small initial concessions can unlock larger later ones, as the mind seeks balance through giving back. That is why free samples, favors, and helpful advice often come with a reasonable request for return. A charitable appeal might include a small token, and the next step is to find a polite way to reciprocate. An alternative approach is to decline the initial gift clearly, ensuring later decisions are based on value and need. This social lever does not require persuasion skills, as the rule itself does much of the work. Once obligation is activated, attention shifts from the offer to what feels fair to return. To protect choice, separate gratitude from obligation by thanking the giver while refusing any implied trade. To use this ethically, give first with no hidden conditions and make any request clear and optional. The liking principle suggests that agreement increases when a requester is personally appealing, familiar, or shares similar values. Liking develops through shared traits, genuine praise, and cooperative goals, making requests feel safer to accept. When connection is the focus, critical evaluation softens and people underestimate how much the request benefits the asker. This effect can be amplified by unity, the sense that someone is part of the same us group. A brand might frame buyers as a community, making the request to join feel like loyalty rather than a purchase. In contrast, treating the interaction as a transaction can return attention to price, quality, and alternatives. Liking and unity work because they shift attention toward relationship signals, not the underlying merits of the offer. Once this shift happens, even weak arguments can feel persuasive because the social bond carries weight. To stay clear, separate the person from the proposal and list objective criteria before responding. If learning to notice liking cues and unity appeals is useful, subscribe for more guides on choosing calmly. Social proof is the tendency to judge what is correct by observing what others do or endorse. Commitment and consistency work when a small public choice locks in one's identity, making later choices align with it. Both levers reduce uncertainty, but can also diminish independent thinking, especially when the crowd or past self is mistaken. They are most potent under ambiguity, time pressure, or stress, when looking outward feels easier than analysis. A product label marked as most popular can signal safety, even when no evidence of fit is provided. A petition that starts with a tiny agreement can later ask for a bigger step, framed as staying consistent. These effects occur because attention shifts to signals of correctness, like consensus counts, or to one's prior stance. Once the signal is accepted, arguments that match it are processed smoothly, while conflicting data is discounted. To resist, ask what independent evidence exists and whether the group is relevant to the decision at hand. To use these levers ethically, invite small commitments only when the later request genuinely aligns with the initial promise. Authority influence occurs when people follow guidance from someone perceived as knowledgeable, powerful, or officially credentialed. Scarcity influence arises when limited availability makes an option seem more valuable, hastening commitment. Both cues simplify complex choices, but they can be faked through titles, uniforms, urgent deadlines, or invented limits. Since the mind seeks safety and efficiency, it may accept these symbols without verifying evidence or incentives. An expert introduced with impressive credentials can receive agreement before the audience tests the claims against facts. A sale described as ending tonight can push action, even when the buyer has not compared alternatives carefully. Authority redirects attention to the person delivering the message, while scarcity redirects attention to missing out. In both cases, the trigger feature becomes the cue itself, and the underlying merits receive less scrutiny. Slow the process by asking for sources, comparing options, and verifying whether the expert or scarcity claim is legitimate. When using authority legitimately, pair credentials with transparent evidence, and never create false scarcity to force a choice. Influence is not only about arguments, it is about which cue captures attention before arguments are even processed. When that cue is chosen intentionally, persuasion can be clearer and more ethical, and resistance can be calmer. You saw how trigger features start automatic responding, and how reciprocation, liking, unity, and social proof shape quick agreement. You also saw how commitment and consistency, authority, and scarcity compress decisions into simple signals that can be tested. With practice, these ideas reduce regret because choices rely on criteria, not on social pressure or timed cues. They also improve communication because requests become transparent, reasons become honest, and agreement becomes informed. Start by identifying one setting where you often comply quickly, then list the cues that usually push you. Next, design one pause routine that asks for evidence, alternatives, and alignment with your real priorities. When attention is managed on purpose, influence becomes something you can understand, not something that happens to you. If you want more ways to recognize these cues and respond thoughtfully, then subscribe for the next practical lessons.